Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Property AI Report. This is the first episode of a weekly podcast where we will look at property and AI technology and how it all fits together and how it can help you, your businesses, to really move forward, to win more market share, to win increased revenue per transaction, and to help with productivity and to help you cut your costs. So we're going to have literally 25 minutes worth of content here, and it's going to be focused around property news and PropTech news. All right, so we're going to do a session about things like Purplebricks and their layoffs this week. We've got some stats about OnTheMarket that dropped this morning. We're going to be looking at technology and AI. Elon Musk had an event last week where he was rolling out his robo-van, had some updates on some robotics and stuff as well, so we'll catch up on that. And then also things about OpenAI in the AI section, how they're losing even more of their kind of founding team, but at the same time they are raising $6.5 billion. Lots going on there too. We'll have our AI tool of the week, so something that you can use right now that is going to help you in your business, and then we'll take a quick look at what's coming up. Let's dive in first of all and start with property news. In this week's property news, the biggest section is going to be all about Purplebricks. Now, last week they announced that they were going to have to shed 100 of their team members. Now, anybody who knows anything about Purplebricks will not find this much of a surprise. So if we head back probably about 10, 12 years, this was a business that claimed it could do quality estate agency for a few hundred quid. Now, they, I think over time, raised about 243 million. And they used this money to essentially subsidize that service. So actually, rather than only costing a few hundred quid, they had to backfill it with some investor cash. They also spent a lot of time and money slagging off the rest of the industry and basically telling vendors and landlords that the local high street agents were ripping them off. So that caused a lot of problems within the industry, particularly around having to agents not being able to charge. Fees came down to less than 1%. Now, I know that in general, not many tiers are shed for the property community estate agents in particular. However, what I would say, and having worked in the industry for 25 odd years, that by far the majority of estate agents are great at what they do and really care. So what this did was it tarnished the reputation of swathes of the country, professionals. It tried to make a quick buck for the founders, the Bruce brothers, and people around at that time. When they floated, obviously they went off into the sunset eventually with all the money. And in the end, Purplebricks was sold in the last 18 months for £1. Okay, so all that money, all that effort, all of that hard work, and a lot of people really got involved, and it just disappeared. And the reason was because it's not possible to provide quality estate agency for the price they were charging, and those subsidies in the end were always going to run out. Investors are going to want a business that makes money, not one that just constantly goes back to them asking for more. So that's what happened in the end. But that pound was spent by a company called Strike. And these were the ones that essentially acquired the brand of Purplebricks, and indeed a bunch of people that worked for them as well, 100 of which appear to be losing their jobs right now. So Strike's model is the same, although depressingly worse. Essentially what it does is it says, come and sell your property with us for free. So Purplebricks is now free, and I'm using air quotes here with also exclamation marks, because it's not really free. You've got to try and, they will try and make their money by upselling you on conveyancing or solicitors, which obviously has to have a higher margin within it in order for them to make any money at all. It doesn't seem like they are, however, successful at doing this, and that is no surprise because selling houses is difficult. And also, there's a lot riding on it. Now, that Purplebricks was able to convince people that they could save, and again, air quotes, save £3,000 by using them, but then get them to overlook the fact that they probably just missed out on the price of that property being £10,000, £20,000 more, right? So you save £3,000, you lose 10, 20 grand on the actual price of the property itself. That's the crazy bit. And that's the bit that it was very difficult for other agents to articulate clearly enough. We've got new Purplebricks that is laying off 100 people. It's trying to convince vendors that it can do what costs on average £3,500 to £4,000 for free, and that essentially they're going to get the same level of service. And that just is, even those for whom Purplebricks, who were charging a few £100s, might have been worth a punt. I think that this free idea has got to be really dubious. And I think that the fact that they have been so invisible over recent months suggests to me that it's not working, and I would not be surprised if they were. Purplebricks were once again going to have to go through that being flogged for a pound / going bust type situation, which, look, for many people is always sad, people involved, etc. But at the same time, if your marketing campaign is basically slating some really good people trying to do a great job, then there's going to be very little sympathy for you in the end, I think. So that's Purplebricks. Obviously, we'll be watching this space. We'll be keeping up to date with what's happening as it goes through. But yes, it's interesting to compare them actually with Yopa, which is another. They also have a fixed fee and a very cheap kind of fee. But what they don't do is they don't use it as a means of saying that you're being ripped off elsewhere. They say, look, we're just cheap, right? We will do this much for you, and there's a market there. There are people for whom selling their property for the least money possible is an ambition, and I think particularly under the leadership of Verona, Yopa have become profitable. They've become a lot more kind of just open, and that they've recently, in the last week, they've announced that what they're doing now is doing a self-employed model, so they can actually recruit people to do self-employed Yopa branded estate agency in their local communities. It's a very crowded market. There's loads of others doing it out there, EXP, including some great traditional estate agents, for want of a better phrase, people like Preston Baker, missions down on the south coast. So there's lots going on here. But what I think that the contrast between those two businesses that didn't start a million miles apart in terms of time frame is that one of them is basically continued to try and denigrate the industry in which it works and is now falling off a cliff again. That's Purplebricks. And then the other one is very much more of a kind of, right, this is who we are, playing alongside the other options for vendors in the market, but has got its own kind of identity and seems to be doing well into profit now. I think that, to me, it epitomizes what good businesses should be, which is essentially knowing who they are, actually delivering on their promises, which is cheap, and enabling profitable business to happen without necessarily actually going into to other businesses and having to slag them off as well. So really interesting contrast, and we will be back to, I'm sure, those two businesses before too much longer. Now let's talk a little bit about PropTech news. So in PropTech, what is standout this week is a lot more portal news. Now, our friends at Rightmove a week and a bit ago decided that they weren't going to sell themselves to the REA Group over in Australia. A quick recap: the REA Group at the beginning of September were forced really to announce by the Disclosure Committee, which sounds super sinister, that there were rumors of them approaching Rightmove and they were affecting the share prices, so they had to come clean about whether they were going to or not. So they said, yeah, look, we're looking at this. So they hadn't even spoken to Rightmove at this point. So then what happened was that Rightmove rejected their first offer, and then REA Group came back with a further 3 offers. And then by the 30th of September, they had to put up or shut up, and they decided, actually, we're not going to increase our fees. So our price. This was really quite a surprising move at the start. That Rightmove was worth £4.4 billion at that point. The shares, the final offer was £6.4 billion, but that was including shares in REA Group. I do think that if they had come with all cash, then the shareholders of Rightmove and perhaps the board would have recommended it. But because part of it was in REA Group shares, which seem to be a little bit overpriced as it stood right now, then that's probably why that folded and why it wasn't accepted at the time. REA Group, I don't think really had time to get their strategy together before they were forced by the Disclosure Committee to reveal that they were looking at Rightmove. And that's why it just got a bit flubbed out towards the end, really. But what that means is that essentially Move is on the slab, right? People are now looking at it, rather than it being this sort of all-powerful beast, it's actually somebody might think about acquiring it. So there were all eyes on Andy Florence of CoStar at PropTech and Portal Watch conference in Barcelona a week and a bit ago, which I was lucky enough to be part of and presenting at. And Andy Florence was in conversation with Simon Baker, who's the founder of PropTech and Portal Watch. Also ex-REA Group, so he actually built the REA Group up from essentially a project from a couple of developers into a Rupert Murdoch majority-owned business. And so the conversation between the two of them was awesome. And essentially, Andy Florence said he wished more than anything else that the REA Group had acquired Rightmove, because that would make his job a lot easier. Now, again, just to recap, Andy Florence, CoStar, recently acquired the number 3 portal in the UK, which is called OnTheMarket. And that acquisition also got a big old pump prime this morning when OnTheMarket released astonishing amounts of data with very high numbers saying how awesome they are, and which may very well be true. But one of the things that is also true is that estate agents that I speak to on a day-to-day basis don't necessarily feel that has significantly impacted the quality and volume of leads that they're getting on a day-to-day basis from OnTheMarket. But that aside, OnTheMarket are clearly pushing really hard with CoStar and Andy Florence's backing to make this PR pitch that they are the coming force, that they are growing, and that everybody needs to pay attention to them. I think there was a 47% uplift in properties they got advertised compared with this time last year, 27%, 25% uplift in the number of agents. So some solid numbers. And they also claim they've spent this £46 million that they had started the year with on search engine marketing through Google, etc. That's a lot of activity. It's a lot of money to spend, right? But actually for relatively little love, I think is probably the phrase from estate agents for all those efforts. So that will probably be a bit disappointing internally, I'd imagine. But no doubt there will be more and more to come with a slightly different strategy. And also it is said, and indeed Andy Florence let this slip during the conference, when he was talking with Simon, that he was imagining the Homes.com Manchester Stadium was what he described it as. I think he was talking about Manchester United. So there does seem to be a rebrand coming of OnTheMarket to Homes.com, which would be huge. But sensible. Again, we've been talking about it on the blogs here at ModelProp since March, that it looked very much like Homes.com/UK would be the sensible way of going about it. There's been that brand is very prominent in their offices here in London, above the OnTheMarket in tiny letters. But anyway, so when Andy and Simon were talking up on stage a week and a bit ago in Barcelona, there was a lot about, are you going to buy Rightmove? CoStar is a $33 billion business. So I'm not suggesting that $8.2 million, which is the conversion rate, is chump change, but he could probably afford it. But he was absolutely adamant this was a business that he would never want to acquire. He said the 70% margin is absolutely obscene that Rightmove makes on all of its revenue, and that he would see that as a kind of ball and chain dragging the business back, because he would have to service that shareholder base, and their expectations are that this margin must continue. So it was really interesting that first of all, he absolutely viewed Rightmove as actually suffering or will suffer as a result of this kind of need of its shareholders, and perhaps particularly now that they have rejected a sizable premium for their shares and trusted the current board to do better and to keep their share price up. So yeah, he's definitely got his eyes on the prize and is going to do everything he possibly can to get ahead of Rightmove, to the point that he was talking about spending £500 million on marketing rather than shipping any number of billions to the Rightmove shareholders to buy the number 1 spot. Always going to be lots and lots on these guys. I think that it's getting really interesting. I think that Zoopla are being squeezed in the middle, obviously. And I think that's going to be interesting how that plays out. There are rumors this week that there's changes at the top of Zoopla. And I wonder whether that does presage a potential CoStar Zoopla tie-up. I really wouldn't be surprised about that, because I think that the more money they spend on fighting each other, the less they've got to go after Rightmove with. So yeah, look, going to be exciting. I think end of this year, early next year, to see how that all shapes down. But I would expect a Homes.com combined fight with Zoopla and OnTheMarket underneath them that would actually start to give Rightmove a little bit of a run for its money. So we will keep up to date with all of that. So that's the PropTech news. And next, we want to have a little look at technology news in general. So in technology news this week, we've got Elon Musk. Now, he had his event last week, which revealed the Robovan and the Cybercab, also some updates to his Optimus humanoid robot. So the last thing was probably the most exciting, in that he was talking about all of us having our own robot and possibly robots, and each of them costing between 20 and 30,000 pounds or dollars, sorry. Essentially, this, he believes, in the next few years is going to start to become pretty mainstream. Now, he has been very wrong very often before in terms of his timings. And it's almost comedic just how he was talking about we'd have full autonomous driving, I think, in 2021, which, driverless stuff. And that's obviously not here yet in 2024. But yeah, if you looked at the humanoid robots, now it has been said since that they were all actually being remote controlled rather than walking along on their own autonomously, which wouldn't be a surprise, obviously. But they look really good. If they do get into mass production, then that's going to be something that's going to be huge, I think. And there's a number of other competitors out there doing the same things. Companies like 1X are doing some really cool stuff with and getting these humanoid robots into the homes so they can start to learn. So there's a huge amount going on in that space. And I do see it as being a really huge part of our futures in the next sort of 5 to 10 years, particularly. He also unveiled the Cybercab, which everybody got very excited about, particularly, I think, the butterfly doors that open. But yes, essentially, it doesn't have a steering wheel or any pedals, and you get in it, it drives. It stops, you get out of it, and it looks very cool. So that's worth having a look, and we'll put the link to some of the videos for this in the show notes. But also he unveiled a Robovan, which was a surprise. Nobody was really expecting that. And this was, again, very futuristic looking, a little bit Art Deco. All of these three things, actually, there's been a kind of a bit of feedback on the socials about how this looks very much like the iRobot film starring Will Smith from 2004, 20 years ago. And actually, there's some pictures, and again, we'll put the links in the notes, that do show that actually he essentially just seems to have been watching that film a lot for the last 20 odd years, and he's just basically, I'll just do that. But yes, it's still pretty cool. A Robovan, basically you get into it, then all the seats spin around, and you can just watch a film while it's driving, or do whatever you like. But it's very advanced, and again, these things are going to come. They will probably be a lot longer than Mr. Musk has said. But yeah, I'm certain that in the next sort of 5 years or so, we'll be seeing some of those out on the roads, even over here in the UK. All right, next up, some AI news. So one of the big names in AI is, of course, OpenAI, run by Sam Altman. Now, it has had the rather inconvenient habit of losing its founders over time. Musk, who we were just talking about, is one of them that has fallen by the wayside. And of the original 20 members of the team, apparently there's only 6 left, including Altman himself, who famously was actually fired about a year ago for not being straight with the board. Then all of the investors got together, and indeed the staff, and went, we want him back. Otherwise, the staff said, we're all resigning. So he was then brought back in, and then the board was fired. So it's been a crazy kind of soap opera in that business, but it's still absolutely gunning, right? It raised 6.4 billion, right? The highest raise ever last week from multiple investors. And it's going to turn itself into a for-profit. It has historically been a not-for-profit. And yeah, it's just going to continue delivering things. So its products are things like ChatGPT. All right, they released ChatGPT almost 2 years ago to the wider world, and everyone went crazy. And it was right about that time that we started here at ModelProp looking at what we could do with AI in the property space and mapping some really cool products into property advertising. So yeah, it's been a real roller coaster for this business, and yet it has raised the largest amount ever for a private company. So yeah, plenty more to come from them, I'm sure, over the coming weeks and months. Things that we are looking forward to include Sora, which is their text to video AI, which has been delayed quite a long time now, and others have been catching up. I think people like Runway and Luma. But yes, that should be coming out soon, and everybody's waiting for ChatGPT 5 as well, which they think should be coming relatively soon. It's released ChatGPT 1, and it's also released 4.0. So there's a few different models coming out about, but yes, there's plenty more. And now they've got a lot of money to do a lot with. All right, so that's your news sections. We talked property, we talked PropTech, we've gone through technology and AI. Now we're going to get to our AI tool of the week. So this week's AI tool of the week is Notebook LM from Google. So if you go to notebooklm.google.com, there is essentially a place where you can upload anything, right? A link, you can upload a document, you can upload the Renters Reform Act text, whatever you like, and then you can just start asking questions about it. All right, it's really cool. And you can, it will delve deep into any particular areas that you're looking for. It will summarize it. You can ask it for controversial elements of it and so on. But what's even cooler is you can then actually click on an audio overview and it will give you two AIs having a very natural sounding conversation about whatever you've uploaded. All right, so it's really interesting. So it'll be like a 10-minute summary of whatever it is in a really easy to digest way. So one of the things that we've been messing about with here is putting links to property descriptions in there. So if you've got a property on your website and say you've got some weekend team going to a viewing appointment with a particular potential buyer, maybe they're not as familiar with the property as the person that's taken it on. So what you can do is you can just put a link, and this is all free, by the way, just put a link to that property into Notebook LM and get it to generate this audio overview. And then your weekend member of staff can listen to it while they go to the property. And then they'll be so knowledgeable about this particular property. I think it's really cool, really fun. Have a look at it, but it will certainly help you, I think, even if it's just internally with churning through so much documentation and so many bits of information. And it will just help you to synthesize and summarize and understand things a heck of a lot quicker. So that's Notebook LM from Google. It's really good. So there we have it. That's the property AI report for this week. Thanks so much for listening in. Just one more thing before we go. This Friday is the ESTAs. Now, if you're not going or you've never been before, honestly, it's amazing and you really should. It is one of those events that is very unique. Because it happens in the afternoon, you do find yourself blinking out into the light at about 6 o'clock in the evening, rush hour Friday. And yeah, just really not quite knowing where the hell you are. But it is great fun. There's so many great people there, so many awards for quality achievements right across the board. We are honoured to be guests of The Depository, Christian and Carla and Co. Amazing business and really super guys too. So very much looking forward to that. If we're going to see anybody there as well, super excited. Do come over and say hi. But yes, that's this Friday. We will no doubt be talking about it next Monday when we will have the second of the Property AI Report podcasts. Until then, thanks very much indeed for listening. I'm Mal McCallion and I'll see you next week. Cheers. Bye-bye.